If you want to start learning Japanese, this is really where you should start. Hiragana, katakana, and as soon as possible, kanji. If you don't start here, you will stunt your progress. But the good news is, it's not as hard as you think. The first thing you need to learn is hiragana. Now, hiragana is a phonetic script that's used to write out words in Japanese. Romaji, or Japanese written out using Roman characters, may seem like the most logical place to start, but it will hold you back. It's not going to help you at all. Don't bother with it, even for a day. Hiragana may look intimidating, but it's really not that bad. With an effective resource, you can learn it in just a few hours. If you abandon romaji and use hiragana from the start, you'll have no issues with it before long. Seriously, after you learn it, never write a Japanese word using Roman characters again, or don't even start using Roman characters, and you will thank me later. So what is the best resource? I personally used Remembering the Kana by James Hasig, which is the same person who wrote Remembering the Kanji, a book that we're going to talk a little bit more about later, so stick around for that. It was great. I learned hiragana in about 3 hours, and I never turned back after that. But before you go and spend money on that, there's now a free resource out there that's possibly even better. That is the Tofugu Hiragana blog post. Check this thing out. It has great mnemonics, or stories that help you remember something, and visuals that make learning each character a breeze. There's also games that help solidify each character. Even my grandmother found this site easy to use. She was struggling with hiragana for a few weeks before I showed her this website, but after she started using it, she had it down relatively quickly. The next thing to tackle is katakana. Katakana is used to write most foreign loanwords in Japanese, like cookie and kohi. It's important and annoying. Nobody likes katakana. Remembering the Kana by James Hasig was not a great resource for this. I really didn't like it. So I used a game called Project LRNJ. It worked surprisingly well. The repetition helped to make it stick, but it was slower to learn using that method than remembering the Kana for hiragana. It's also probably slower than using the Tofugu website. Fortunately, Tofugu also has a great page for katakana, so just go with that. It's great for all the same reasons that their hiragana post is great. At kanji, we reach a point where experimentation and personal preference is probably going to take over. When I started learning kanji, there weren't a lot of great methods or resources out there, so I used Remembering the Kanji by James Hasig, who we mentioned earlier. It teaches how to write and recognize kanji, and I loved it, but it doesn't teach readings of kanji. That's not necessarily a bad thing, as I feel like the best way to learn readings of kanji, when you get to a higher level especially, is just by learning vocabulary words. But it can be a turnoff for some. Not to mention there's probably a lot of extra kanji in the book that you don't really need. They're not that common. The great thing about it though is that when you learn that even complex kanji are really just combinations of simpler pieces called radicals, it all starts to make sense. That's why I tend to recommend, recently at least, RRTK, or Recognition Remembering the Kanji. It's a modification of Remembering the Kanji created for MIA, or Map vs. Japan's old website, now Refold. While I don't agree with everything presented by the quote immersion community, this tool is quite useful. It cuts down the kanji you learn from over 2,000 to 1,000 of the most common kanji, and then after you're able to recognize those 1,000, it's much easier to recognize new kanji, and it encourages you to learn more through vocabulary, which is what I usually recommend as well. After you learn how kanji are built through radicals, learning the first 1,000 kanji, picking up new ones from vocabulary, it's not actually very difficult. Also, it's not really necessary for most people to learn how to write each and every kanji individually anymore. A few rules is fine. So this works for most people in my opinion. With that said, some other methods that many people I know adore are Wanikani and KKLC, or the Kodansha Kanji Learners Course. I had to read that one. Wanikani is like RTK 2.0, but my personal gripes with it are that it makes up a lot of radical names. Radicals in Japanese actually have names, and they can be translated into English, but Wanikani just makes a lot of them up, and I don't love that, but most people probably don't mind. It's also quite expensive long term, and it also takes up a lot of your time that you could be using for other parts of Japanese. But it also time gates a lot of new kanji for people who would like to go faster, which I also didn't like. If you don't mind those things though, it does seem quite effective. The first 3 levels are free, so it doesn't hurt to give it a shot. By the way, this video isn't sponsored or anything, so don't worry about that. I don't really know anything about KKLC, but a few users in my Discord swear by it, so I figured I should mention it. It might be worth looking into before you commit to any specific method, because you're going to be doing whatever you decide on doing for a very long time. Give yourself at least 6 months to a year to pick up enough kanji to get by, honestly. Probably longer for most people. One thing I do want to mention is you probably shouldn't try learning more than 20 kanji per day, and that's if you have at least 2 hours to study every day. 10 is probably enough for most people. In the end, how you learn kanji is gonna come down to your personal preference, so try out a few things, see which one you like the best, and stick with it. So you need to learn hiragana and katakana before you do anything with Japanese. Unlike languages that use a Roman alphabet where you can just start learning vocabulary from day one, you can't do that with Japanese, at least in my opinion. Tough luck, right? Kanji you learn while you're learning vocabulary and grammar and other things. Kanji takes a while, so don't get discouraged. It takes a while for everyone. When you're done learning hiragana and ideally katakana, if you want to get your head around some simple Japanese grammar, check out the link down in the description to a playlist that'll help you get started. It'll get you off to a great start, but you need to learn at least hiragana before you understand what's going on in it.